If the dream of human giant experiment can be ranked in Charlotte Linlin's heart, it is definitely not lower than the level of establishing the concept of the world. Charlotte Linlin, who was deeply influenced by Garmer Luo Shu's daughter when she was a child, kept in mind the idea that the other party once said, "Everyone is equal. There is no distinction between races and a dream country where all people are treated equally. One day, all people will be bigger, and they can sit round at a table." It is the change of Charlotte Linlin's will to inherit the daughter of Garmer Luo Shu, and it is also the dream of pursuing One Piece in her heart. Perispero and Katakuri, who also knew their mother's inner desire, couldn't help but look at the redundant memory film. As the main think tanks, both of them analyzed the events recorded in the apron. It is indeed as they said, there are stories about these people, everything that happened, and what happened to them after they learned about pure gold. With the relationship of scientific researchers, I got information about pure gold and even the experiment of maximizing the human body. Everything seems to be so natural, but it is precisely this that makes people feel extraordinarily wrong. Katakuri frowned, and said involuntarily, "Mom, be careful." "Yes, mother, it's a coincidence." Perispero also exhorted. It happened to be a coincidence to learn about pure gold, and it happened to be the human giant experiment that my mother liked, and they were all put on the island by the generals of the air, which is obviously a deliberate arrangement. After listening to the words of her two confidant sons, Charlotte Linlin, who has not yet been devoured by desire, calmed down. Although from these memories, it is not clear that they were instructed by Moda, or did it on purpose, but the coincidence is indeed a problem. Especially after talking with Kaido a few times, Charlotte Linlin also knows Moda, a bastard who is good at planning. However, the pure gold jewelry witnessed by the memory film is not fake, so will the human body enlargement experiment be real? Charlotte Linlin has also inquired about this opponent's territory that she is particularly concerned about. Among them, the scientific research base has many secrets that are not known. Especially in the previous Punk Hazard incident, Moda abducted that guy Saw Current, who is the number 2 person in the scientific research team with the current top scientist Vegapunk. Presumably he is also an outstanding scientist, so the human body giant experiment may not be a hypothesis. What's more, whether it's true or not, knowing such a result but ignoring it will not allow her to truly calm down. Charlotte Linlin is a person who is prone to desires, especially when desires are linked to her wishes. "I'm going to start a war." After a while of silence, Charlotte Linlin said suddenly. These speeches suddenly changed the faces of the children present. "What's more, that bastard is already ready to go to war with my mother." After saying this, Perispero and Kotaku remembered something. In that memory, apart from the pure gold in the giant human body experiment, I still learned that the Air General stored resources for a large-scale expedition in Wano-kuni. If this is an overt conspiracy to attract the mother, coupled with the other party's destruction of the islands of the Wangguo territory, then this message is undoubtedly the clarion call for Moda to advocate an attack on the Wangguo. Katakuri's face immediately turned ugly. Although the rest of the children don't know the general situation, but from the terrifying aura emanating from their mother at this time, coupled with the fact that they are in a sober state, they know that there should be no more voices of persuasion and opposition. After accepting the mother's order, everyone also started to call up troops and other deployments after telling them. Katakuri big brother, wait. After walking out of the castle, Katakuri was stopped by Smoothie behind him. "Smoothie, what's the matter?" Katakuri stopped and looked at Smoothie and the twins beside her, Charlotte Strong and Charlotte Snaman. Katakuri Smoothie, who covered most of his face with a scarf and still had no expression changes due to the war, didn't know how to speak for a while. Seeing her sister's tangled appearance, Charlotte Strong couldn't help but speak. "Katakuri big brother, although it's not good to say that, we still feel that this war is putting Wangguo and mother on a very dangerous edge." Hearing Strong's words, Katakuri's face changed, and then he looked around suddenly, and after confirming that there was no one there, he took the 3 girls to a wall built by glutinous rice balls. "If this word is heard by mother, you will be severely punished. That's why we will show it to Katakuri big brother." After Strom got straight to the point, Smoothie no longer had any entanglements, and said as the core bone of the triplets, "Katakuri big brother, you should know that Mom probably won't be the opponent of the Air General. Mom can rely on her strong strength and don't have to worry so much, but now her strength has begun to decline, while the opponent is constantly at the peak." Perhaps Charlotte Linlin didn't expect that she, who used to rely on her terrifying power to make all her children live in fear, but with her failure at Cake Island, she had already made her children think differently. It's a little bit to say that has been unfaithful to his mother. After all, the family relationship maintained by terror is not only distorted, but also easily affected by external situations. Similarly, Moda has been getting stronger in recent years. Wanokuna's status in the New World is getting higher and higher, and the strong background shown in the competition under the Flame Festival. The opponent is already a colossus standing in the New World. They have no chance of winning, and even falling behind in the Emperor may lead to a complete defeat of the situation. If it fails, as the loser, the outcome can be imagined. So they were not negative before the war, but wanted the second elder brother to dispel her mother's idea of going to war against Moda. These words and thoughts, you'd better forget them when you go back. And this war can't be stopped. You haven't seen the memory film, so you don't know. Moda's territory has already begun to organize large-scale war preparations. Judging from the recent signs that they attacked us first, it is very likely that coming for us. But he didn't let his younger sisters just think about it, Katakuri reminded. Being able to build the nation step by step. My mother chose to go to war knowing this situation must have been premeditated by her. Everything is still undecided. In the end, at least for now, we must, as citizens of all nations, children of mothers, try our best to win the result. See Circle Calendar late 1510. After the Flame Festival that did not invite any party became the topic of New World, a huge news event spread throughout the dark world of New World at an extremely fast speed. Less than a day before the Flame Festival started, the town of Coco Island, located on the edge of the world, was destroyed in a large area in the sea area of Todo land controlled by Big Mom. In just a few minutes, ferocious and terrifying thunderbolts continued to fall, almost turning the entire island into a ruined place. There is only one person who can control the existence of thunder in this vast sea of New World. Air General Moda's Royal Court Ban Ace. Reki Yamato with a bounty of 1.24 billion baileys. In the following day, the Big Mom pirates issued an order to launch a retaliatory crusade against Wano, which kicked off another Emperor's War. Morgans, the president of World News, will naturally not let go of the news that can make the world explode again. After a day of preparation, the next morning, countless newsbirds were already circling around the world. When the news spread, the entire New World was shocked by it. This is the first New World frenzy in nearly 8 years since the Sea Circle calendar in 1503. Starting with Big Mom's slogan of launching a war, coupled with the fact that Wano has slowly and gradually accumulated a large-scale combat power reserve, the theory of war has been confirmed. The world suddenly exploded like a pot. No one thought that the two emperors of the sea, Big Mom and Air General, would launch such a big event. It's not like the time Whitebeard got in trouble with Kaido and the Air General was alone at the tea party. This is a real war, declared by the Emperor himself. Especially when the two parties each hold a powerful territory in the New World, both in terms of scale and nature, they are far beyond the previous ones. Big Mom Charlotte Linlin sits in the waters of Todo Land, one of the 34 islands. The homies soldiers in her hands and the combat power of the pirates under her command are the most in the current New World Royal Regiment, and they are all different from the New World level of the park. Air General Moda, in charge of the Wano Sea area, has developed many large-scale islands on the water where lion fruit and momo fruit are like a duck to water. Although the level of military strength may not be comparable to the exaggerated number of Big Mom, everyone who participated in the Flame Festival knows Wanakuna's current strong national calendar. Huge amount of food reserves, high-tech seastone craft weapons, and powerful munitions energy. In particular, the powerful management system is paired with the famous warrior country. In terms of strength, compared with Wan Guo, the quality is definitely greater than the quantity. In this sea, the concept of one man forming an army and 10 men defeating a country is not a joke. The most important thing is the collision between the main cores of the two sides. Now she is still a well-deserved queen of the sea, facing another emperor who has the ability to destroy the world after Whitebeard. Whether it's age, current prestige, or the successful tea party and repelling Charlotte Linlin's deeds, in this war between the two New World emperors, most people are more optimistic about the side of the Air General. Of course, this is only a predictable result. No one can really see the result of the war. The situation began to climb slowly, a calm before the storm. Before the trend came, it had already attracted widespread attention. Morgans, the president of Shibao, even cried and shouted that there would be more explosive news from the two forces, so that he could take advantage of this to make a fortune. The situation in New World has directly entered an unprecedented heated stage. Forces, large and small, completely focused their attention on the sea area where the two parties fought. Many people in the Dark World, like some less powerful pirates, were afraid of suffering the crime of harming the fish pond, so they evacuated from the many sea areas between Big Mom and the Air General early. All over the world talk freely about it, especially the bar with the highest concentration of pirate mobs. A group of universal qualities naturally express their inner words through emotions such as jealousy, contempt, and resentment. Some are optimistic about the two forces, some gloat and hope to die together, and some hope to completely disrupt the New World's four emperors pattern and return it to chaos. With such a gathering of people, it seems that Charlotte Linlin is also serious. That Sengoku guy thinks this is an opportunity, and seems to want to send troops from the headquarters. Naval headquarters is busy with this explosive incident, and they, the five highest powers in the world government, have also begun to sit among the powers for a long time and wait for the latest news one by one. Now is not the time, just wait and see. Someone in the five elders has a decree. Sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight is their most important thing at present. The tiger that has not been seriously injured still has a strong counterattack force. Moreover, if one chooses to enter the battlefield at this time, not only will there be no profit, but there may also be the risk of flanking and siege. Although it was a war between two sea emperors, they were both the owners of the illegal zone of New World after all, and Marine immediately became their main enemy. Moda's side has too many means, those forbidden areas exist, and no one knows what else he is hiding. I only hope that Charlotte Linlin's Wan Guo can force them all out. Because of the details of the deal with Wano-kuni, the world government knows some details about Moda's forces better than Wano-kuni. Leaving aside the hidden munitions and equipment, the superb seastone products have an extremely terrifying suppressive power against Charlotte Linlin's homies soldiers. Unsurprisingly, this war will be won by Moda. Five Elders, who is in charge of military affairs, held the first-generation ghost in his hand and said Hado. Let's not mention the speculation that has no results. Blonde Five Elders crossed his legs, nodded in front of the meeting table and said, whether it is the Toto Land Sea area on Big Mom's side, or the Wano-kuni Sea area under Moda's control, it can have extremely high strategic significance for us. Compared with the changes in the world situation caused by the victory or defeat of the war between the two sides, they care more about the fruits of the cake that can be shared after the war. That's right. Mustache Five Elders nodded in agreement and said, but the problem is that we are not the only ones who are slandering the post-war achievements. In addition to world government and marine, pirates are a kind of vicious people who will frantically gather when they smell flesh and blood. Who wouldn't be envious of the position of the Emperor of the New World? Who wouldn't be jealous of the wealth of the two top sea areas? Besides, the other two emperors, Whitebeard and Kaido, would never just watch indifferently. For a while, the five people in power fell into a state of silence. After a while, the blonde Five Elders suddenly thought of something, coughed lightly and pulled everyone's thinking eyes back, and then said, "You say, what will happen if we intervene in this war?" As soon as these words came out, all four of them were shocked, with a look of whether you are serious or stupid. Immediately after his thoughts reversed, Five Elders, holding a sword, immediately grasped what the other party wanted to express, and said, "You mean, we should choose one of the two to win?" When Five Elders held the sword, the other three Five Elders also responded one after another. After thinking for a moment, their eyes lit up, obviously paying attention to this. This is not impossible. Compared with the post-war competition, this situation is not only more time-saving and labor-saving, but also highly effective. They can give some support, and then ask for some islands in the sea area as a price. This way, it is indeed more convenient than the battle between the heroes afterwards. The conclusion after this approach is agreed is the choice of both forces. Holding a sword, Five Elders glanced around, and then said with a serious face, "So, which side do you think wins, and we can have greater benefits?" The Five Elders in the conference hall tensed up. There is no doubt that Big Mom is definitely the winner, and the world government is the best winner. Not only will the air generals who are deeply hidden dangers be dealt with, but Wanakuna's huge financial resources, manpower, technology, etc., can be further held by the world government. All of these are definitely more precious than the islands in the Toto Land Sea area. This is an obvious thing, but since Five Elders with a sword can say that, it means that things are not as simple as imagined. Choice is not a simple thought of choosing which side has the greatest benefits. They are the top ones in charge of the world government, and all other factors must be taken into consideration. Although the method is better than the results after the War of Heroes, the wind of cooperation between the world government and the pirates also needs to be taken into account. In particular, cannot cause too much disturbance, otherwise, even if it gains benefits, the reputation of the world government may suffer a very serious blow in the world. This is not the time when the Valley of the Gods was relatively hidden. The situation of the war between the two emperors has been reported to the whole world, and it has become an explosive topic and has attracted a lot of attention. At this point, it is doomed that the world government cannot be too explicit in the war. If you choose Big Mom, you will undoubtedly have to face the Wano-kuni Sea area, which has been generally determined to win before. No matter the difficulty or the effort of action, you need to spend double the price. And if you choose Moda, then some of the islands in the Todo landwaters are basically at your fingertips. This is the choice between high return high risk and low return low risk. It is also a choice between the characters and actions of the 5 elders. Until the end, with 2 votes each, the 4 couldn't help but look at the blonde 5 elders. Inexplicably becoming the key vote, the blonde 5 elders also looked at the 4 of them, swallowed slightly, and said, "Send someone to contact Moda first." The 2 5 elders with high returns and high risks raised their eyebrows, but didn't say anything. It has always been an iron law among power that the minority obey the majority. As for whether Moda will refuse, it is obviously not within the scope of the 5 people's consideration. At the price of a few 3 islands, in exchange for a bigger force to deal with another top combat force, a flying general who is proficient in strategy, it is impossible to refuse. The world government, which is confident in this, will not be mentioned for the time being. On Cake Island at this time, Charlotte Linlin also knew that in the next big battle, facing Moda's Wano-kuni Sea area, the numerical advantage might not be enough to win the battle. What can really represent the direction of the battle is the level of combat power. So, once again, she hooks up with brother Kaido. Kaido. Linlin. It was also a silent greeting, and each of them called each other's name in the phone bug. Knowing the reason for Charlotte Linlin's visit, Kaido directly held the phone and said, "Don't think I don't know what you're planning, Linlin. This is a war you started. Do you still expect Laozi to wipe your ass?" "This is not what I wanted to provoke first," Charlotte Linlin said coldly with dissatisfaction. "And this time it's a different kind of brawl, Kaido. I need your help. Don't talk about these things, since you have chosen Wangtu Bay, it should be a life and death situation, Kaido. Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin used the old method again. "So, are you planning to ignore my kindness to you? I treat you like a younger brother, not to mention the half of your current achievements, Qiwuhai Phantom Beast, but I gave it to you. This is a huge kindness." This remark also made Kaido very upset. "During the year when you and Moda were in conflict, I told you that the kindness that is always brought up will only drop in value. I don't care if you can't drop the price, you can repay this kindness now, help me, and get rid of that bastard Moda." Mentioning someone, the anger made Charlotte Linlin's face darken even more. "Stop kidding, Linlin." Grunt grunt. Kaido took a sip of his drink and said, "Laozi is an emperor now, how could he let his subordinates get involved in this battle? And you should know that I have a cooperative relationship with Moda, which is a closer deal than arms." "Mom." Charlotte Linlin suddenly let out a mocking laugh. "I still don't understand you, Kaido. As long as you settle the transactions between Moda, Wano-kuni and you, I will guarantee that you can have them all." Kaido didn't reply, only slow and deep breathing. Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin gritted her teeth again. "I will let you get a copy of the road sign rubbings in my hand. This is the limit. Don't be too greedy, Kaido." Hearing this, like a silent and closed phone bug, he immediately opened his naked eyes. The next period of time, whether it is the nations in the Todo Land Sea area or the Wano-kuni Sea area, there is no further news. Both sides seem to be preparing for the upcoming battle. This war, which is destined to be closely related to the New World 4 Emperor's structure, has fermented more and more over time. Marines, pirates, common people, and even all kinds of underground forces, large and small, all turned their attention to the border sea area where the conflict was about to break out. Under a seemingly peaceful atmosphere, the undercurrent is already surging. New World, an island belonging to the territory of the Whitebeard pirates. "Father, it looks like the Big Mom pirates are about to come out, it's moving." Harda, the captain of the 12th Division, said solemnly, "This situation is bound to have another impact on New World." "Halta, your temperament is too stable. Pirates are not such a creature." The captain of the 7th team next to him, Lakeo, chuckled, turned to look at Whitebeard. "Father, this is an opportunity, isn't it? Just that guy is messing with our territory, and we can take this opportunity to repay them well." Obviously the site refers to the Fishmen Island with the flag. Whitebeard, who was half lying on the rattan chair, did not answer this question, but looked at Yizang aside. "What do you think, Yizang?" Everyone present knew that Yizang, the captain of the 16th squad, who was considered a veteran, was from Wano-kuni. When asked about himself, Yizang couldn't help but hesitate. but soon turned his head and said, "You don't need to care about me, my family now is you." Cool la 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 la. After laughing loudly, Whitebeard suddenly sat up straight, grinned and said, "That's right, it's good. How can the pirate turn a blind eye to it? Not to mention that brat has been very arrogant recently." Marco smiled slightly. "Yes, we are the Whitebeard pirates." It was like an absolute cheering slogan. As soon as Marco said this, the people around him immediately became excited like a chicken blood. What to do, biddy? Quite a few were excited, and it was their way of showing the world the strength of their Whitebeard regiment. Thief, ha ha ha. Teach bit the donut and laughed suddenly. "Dad, I have an idea." Whitebeard looked at the core bone, and the rest naturally followed to look at Teach. Although he is not the captain, he is also a veteran who grew up in the Baituan, and he can still have the respect he deserves in a family atmosphere. Teach showed a simple and honest smile, and then said, "We can take advantage of the critical moment when the Big Mom pirates are fighting against Moda, and directly attack Wano-kuni." Hearing this, many people were speechless for a while, thinking that the other party would come up with better ideas. But it is undeniable that this idea is really good, although it is insidious. No matter from the perspective of rewarding Moda or the degree of profit, it can gain a lot. Whitebeard frowned slightly. Marco, who knew his father best, knew that his father never liked sneak attacks while others were not prepared, so he immediately shook his head in denial. "Teach, your idea is not bad, but it's too cheap for us. Even if we succeed, what will people in the world think of us? How will they think of Dad? Papa is the strongest man in the world. With this method, no matter how great the benefits are, it can't make up for the damage to Papa's name." The pirates who originally thought that Teach had a good idea changed the direction of the wind immediately. What Urk said is right. What benefits are far worse than the reputation of the old man? That's right, Wano-kuni is not easy to attack. After all, it has a steep terrain, and as Moda's base camp, all kinds of protective deployment must be very complete. The rest of the captains followed suit. Seeing that his own words were generally recognized, Marco also stood up from the steps. "I don't think it's better than this. Since Moda is going to war with Big Mom, he must have taken a fancy to the other party's territory. Let's just wait after the battle and join the turf battle. Moda intervenes in our turf, and we will plunder his achievements." After speaking, Marco turned his head to look at Whitebeard, waiting for the other party's answer. Compared with Teach's statement, of course, Marco is more in line with his wishes. Whitebeard did not hesitate at all, waved his hand, and readily agreed. "Kula la 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 la, just act according to what Marco said. There is no objection, Teach." "How come, father?" Teach immediately scratched his head with a smile on his face. "I'm just raising an idea. I didn't consider Dad's reputation. If I thought about it, I would definitely be the same as Captain Marco." Whitebeard nodded in satisfaction. He didn't care if he had different ideas or concepts, because his sons could be said to come from all over the world. As long as they didn't touch the iron law of the ship, that was enough. As the pirates with Whitebeard as the core, when the husband opened his mouth, everyone else followed Marco's idea. Teach followed suit, with a smile that was half true and half false. After so many years, he does not deny the powerful strength of Whitebeard, and sincerely agrees, admires and desires. In fact, he didn't have much hope at the beginning. After all, it was too difficult to find a specific devil fruit in such a big world. He even thought that if he couldn't find the dark fruit, he would just stay in the Whitebeard pirates for the rest of his life. However, after seeing Moda, who turned out to be born a few years ago, and possessed the ability of double devil fruit, the ambition that has been suppressed in Teach's heart slowly appeared a crack that wanted to be released. Obviously, he can also have the capital of dual abilities, but for his ultimate goal, he can only choose to endure. At the same time, there is a lot of jealousy towards Moda, who is now the Emperor of the Sea. And the sudden war between the two emperors was supposed to be able to use the hands of the old man to severely damage such a troublesome force for his possible future, but he was rejected by such a ridiculous reason. A pirate is a pirate, a guy who is supposed to use all means for profit, but actually gave up such a good proposal because he cared about his reputation. As for the so-called terrain protection, would Dad, who has the strongest ability in the world, be afraid of this? Taking a piece of steak casually, Teach looked at this group of companions in a warm family atmosphere, and couldn't help but feel nauseous from the bottom of his heart. Sure enough, it's good to be under the protection of the father's name, but this kind of family atmosphere like playing house is really not to his liking. This is no longer a pirate. After taking a breath, Teach muttered in his heart again after a second thought. With his ambitions getting stronger and stronger, even without dark fruit, he no longer intends to be an obscure little person for the rest of his life. He is also 29 years old now, not young, but with the background of the Whitebeard group still at its peak, he can still wait. After all, the sea is changing rapidly, and people's dreams will never end. In the conversation between Dad and Luogia, he knew the meaning of D, which is also one of the symbols in his name. Wano-kuni, Amazon Lily Fortress. This is one of the forbidden areas, the daughter country. Although it has autonomy, it can be said to be completely integrated into Wano-kuni. The architectural style of the wooden high-rise castle is also changed to a more modern building. Especially the imperial palace in the core area, after Hancock came to power, all the inherited buildings of previous generations of emperors were overthrown, and a more comfortable and magnificent castle was built. And many of these important places are specially built for someone. Gu Luoli Bodhisattva was so angry that he couldn't sleep for several days. In the past, the identity of the former emperor asked Hancock to ask for an explanation, and he was either thrown or kicked out of the new palace in the original book. After knowing the truth about the so-called going abroad to solve lovesickness, after becoming a proud empress, she will have family members' approval for Grandma Niu, but not much. Especially when the problem involves Moda, they don't give any affection at all. In the palace at the moment of, a large amount of human and financial resources and even special products were spent in the vast hot spring pool. After preparing the arrangement of the 9 snake warriors, Moda enjoyed a moment of leisurely time here, which is extremely rare. In and beside the hot spring pool full of coral and beautiful rocks, there are gathered 9 snake warriors with stunning looks and figures. Of course, there are also female retainers who also came here in their leisure time before the war. Therefore, some areas of the hot springs are also specially built. After all, Maria has indeed reached the giant height of 8 meters in the original book. Sitting on the coral rock beside the hot spring pool, Robin was also wearing a purple 3-point swimsuit, listening to the report from the Shadow Guard's exclusive phone bug. Is that so? I understand. Listening to the conversation, Moda propped his hands on both sides of Shanyan, and looked back at Robin from the expression of closed eyes in enjoyment. Why? What did the Shadow Guard learn about it? Putting the phone bug ability aside, Robin soaked Qianshan's slender legs in the hot spring pool and reported to Moda. There is news from the Shadow Guards in the Whitebeard regiment, saying that Whitebeard will launch a strong offensive to seize the fruits of the post-war battle. Moda chuckled and said, "It seems that all parties have a general understanding that we will win. Isn't this a matter of course? After all, how can that old woman compare with Master Moda, even if you add Kaido?" While speaking, Hancock groaned excitedly with a face full of intoxication, and indulged in the side pool with satisfaction. Fortunately, the pet Salome next to him immediately coiled up skillfully and quickly lifted the owner up. Yamato's expression changed. Not long ago, she understood what Hancock said was far better than hers. It's like opening the door to the new world. Although I feel inexplicably uncomfortable and shy in my heart, I always have a mentality that is eager to try. It can't be said that the 2-4 Emperors alliance can still cause a lot of trouble. Blind arrogance is the most taboo in planning big events. Moda has a clear understanding of his own strength. In terms of level, he thinks he can match Whitebeard's peak level. But in the face of 2 monster level 4 Emperors, of course it is impossible to achieve a 100% crush like a cruel dish. His fruits, when matched together, are at the world-killing level. But on the sea, only Haki is the existence above everything in the battle between the two sides, and Kaido and Charlotte Linlin are both Haki who have reached the level of Emperor of the Sea. However, the impact caused by the Double Emperor Alliance is nothing more than trouble. This is war, not just a battlefield between emperors. In terms of elites, even the combined fleet of 100 beasts and 10,000 kingdoms is not enough to compare with Wanakuna's combat power. In terms of toughness, as long as Charlotte Linlin falls, the fleet of all nations will fall in a devastating way. Robin's pretty face was flushed, and he didn't know if it was because of the heat of the hot spring or some other reason. He barely suppressed the restlessness in his heart, and then said, "In this case, Mr. Moda, do you want to talk about our proposal for the world government? Accept it?" Although the people from the government agencies have not been sent to explain, but they have been able to gradually reach out to Katrine Demai in the CP, but they have already notified the information after the government expressed their intentions. It is still in the outbreak stage before the war. With the deployment of powerful shadow guards, Wano-kuni can clearly understand the main forces involved in this war and what their plans are. After hearing Robin's words, Moda couldn't help but raised his head and laughed. Even if she wants to combine Kaido and form a double emperor alliance against her own Charlotte Linlin, it will not affect Moda's judgment on the victory of the situation, let alone the plan of the world government. From the very beginning, the war he launched was not about Big Mom at the core, but a group of heroes waiting for opportunities after victory. Among them, there are ideas for world government, Kaido, and Whitebeard. Otherwise the Shadow Guards would not be deployed in it, but Kaido joined the battle first. Those guys are really thinking of a good idea. Since that's the case, let's accept the world government's proposal. Moda's speech did not cause any surprises except for the beautiful warriors around. As the retainer who has been with Moda the longest, even Yamato knows that since Moda wants to annex all the nations, he will never let anyone take advantage of him. With emerald long hair floating in the soup pond, Kozuki looked at Moda with a funny look on his face. Our Lord General must have some bad idea again. Indeed. Gion breathed a sigh of relief, confirming it. Moda smiled back, noncommittal. It wasn't until Yamato approached and asked curiously that Moda said, "It's okay to ask the world government to provide conditional support, but if there is no effective help, there is no reason for us to give them benefits." Moda touched Yamato's hair, and then looked at Kozuki and Robin. "Don't we have a hidden partner? It is enough for him to involve." Revolutionary Army. The two supervisors immediately thought of what Moda was referring to. Robin thinks more about this than Kozuki. According to the information from Katrine, Robin is the main reason why the world government chose to support Wano Kuni. In this way, the level of combat power supported by the world government can be well restrained by today's revolutionary army. And with this approach, the more troublesome world government can also be excluded from the subsequent world looting station. Thinking of this, Robin's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help sighing secretly. Sure enough, Master Moda can calculate in terms of planning strategies, especially the aspect of pitting hostile forces. Hearing Robin's voice, Moda looked at with admiration. For the chief executive who is more and more able to control his own mind, and can also develop personal strategies, in all aspects, Moda is becoming more and more perfect. Yes. Facing Moda's unscrupulous sizing and admiration, Robin raised his eyes and responded. As expected of one of my proud managers, come here. Moda smiled lightly. Robin understood what it meant, and looked at the beauties around him who looked envious or teasing, and after biting his lower lip with silver teeth, he took the initiative to swim up. I'm really envious. In this case, I will reluctantly take Yamato first. Maria smiled, and at the same time passed the Yamato room. Kozuki rolled his eyes at the situation over there, then pulled the blushing Gion away from the battlefield a little. With the two of them holding hands, the pure gold rings on their respective fingers still shone dazzlingly and movingly under the mist of the Tongchi. The time, in a time of extreme tension in the New World, came to the Sea Circle calendar 1511. New World, an island near the Toto landwaters of all nations. This is a seemingly uninhabited area surrounded by lush virgin forests. But because of the Great War that everyone is looking at now, this island area has long been hidden by the staff of the World Economic News Agency. It has been almost a week since I came here, early morning. What on earth are you eating? A bunch of trash. It was just dawn, and before dawn in the east, the growling voice belonging to the President Morgans came from the phone bug. It's been a week, can't you catch any news that can cause rumors? President. Hearing Morgan's dissatisfaction, a group of subordinates could only helplessly Kaido. We really have no choice, the sea area of Toto land has also entered a state of war, and we have no know what they're up to. Yes, President, we really want to get some news, but now Wan Guo is surrounded by patrol ships. It's as difficult as entering Wano Kuni. Morgans took a deep breath when he heard this, and didn't know what to say for a moment. Although digging out the first information is of the highest value, but facing the Emperor of the New World, no one really wants to risk their lives in it for the news of the explosion. In this situation, even if he is the president, he cannot force it. At this moment, a reporter holding a telescope seemed to see something and his expression suddenly changed. Immediately afterwards, he concentrated again. At first, he was a little stunned and unbelievable, and then he was convinced of something. He stood up suddenly from his seat and came to the team leader who was still guaranteeing the rate of return. His face was full of madness and excitement. Team leader, President Morgans. I saw it. I saw the Big Mom Grand Fleet departing from the southern area of the city. What? The team leader suddenly sat up from his seat. The phone bug even imitated Morgan's surprised look, and then quickly ordered. Why are you still standing there? Quickly get the equipment, and record them all with the most sophisticated equipment. As the cardboard of Shibao, it naturally has the most top-notch equipment, and even with a distance of several nautical miles, the imaging equipment can capture the situation completely and clearly like a telescope. Everyone gathered around the instrument that enlarged the screen. Instantly, the excitement of getting the headlines went straight to shock. It was a huge fleet with a scale that could be described as terrifying. While it included many ships under its command, there were also dozens of cake ships, sailing mightily beyond the sea level of all nations, covering the sky and the sun, with awe-inspiring momentum. Amazing. And at the forefront of the fleet is the huge ship, Queen Mother Singing, which is hundreds of meters high. On the deck, a fat and tall figure can be faintly seen standing on the bow. The Queen, Mother, and him on the Big Mom card are the main ones, displayed in a majestic wild goose formation. It looks like a terrifying steel monster on the sea, exuding a dangerous feeling that makes people palpitate. This is really a large-scale operation that has never been seen before. Is this a whole nest of Big Mom? Looking at the large black gun barrels, each battleship is equipped with a combat force based on thousands of people. Just by looking at it, the sea is covered with darkness. It is only an estimate. The lowest estimate is an exaggerated force of more than 100,000 troops, which makes the war reporters on the island feel chills in their backs. He even forgot the topicality of the headlines for a moment, but felt more realistically how violent this war would bring to New World. There seems to be some little bugs filming over there. Standing on the deck of the leading Queen Mother anthem, Charlotte Daifuku said. It's the Morgans guys. Owen, one of the triplets, then looked towards the island. Don't worry about them. Katakuri said indifferently, we still need to use them to influence the momentum. Regarding the explosive topic that has been widely known around the world, there is no need for the Charlotte family to deliberately conceal their whereabouts. Not only is such a large number of warships difficult to hide. In other words, in this special period, every disturbance is immediately known, and it is really difficult to achieve the effect of a surprise attack. At the same time, the forces of all nations who actively called for war can also use this topic of concern to influence the momentum of this large fleet to the world. In this way, even if almost all of their nations are dispatched, they will not be affected by those pirates before the situation is settled. At the moment when the Big Mom large fleet showed its attack, Moda, who was far away in the waters of Wano-kuni, had already learned the specific situation from the Shadow Guard. His gaze changed from his usual casualness, and he looked to the left side, as if he had already seen the large fleet thousands of nautical miles away. Moda looked down at the Sabu port again. Wanakuna's well-prepared deployment had already been waiting for a long time. The 10 giant battleships that have been remodeled are the main ones. While all the advanced firepower is full, each ship is equipped with a full 5,000 elite soldiers of more than. In addition to the rest of the auxiliary light cruisers and air battleships, there are more than 100,000 elites. This is more than 6 or 7 times more than the sum of the Orochi and the soldiers participating in the rebellion in the original book. In particular, the cultivation of Wanakuna's combat power under Moda's management is a policy that pays more attention to quality than quantity. 90% of the troops who master the basic two-color hockey, and 40% of them are elite, who are already good at using high-level armed colors or knowledge colors. Not to mention, he also has technological power that cannot be underestimated. Therefore, the alliance formed by Charlotte Linlin and Kaido secretly is nothing to fear in a world where strength is king. There are even 20% of the troops standing still in the country, and Kozuki, who stays behind, sits in charge and cooperates with the Shadow Guards to make corresponding wartime changes according to the specific situation. In this way, under the mighty power of the Air General, even the so-called Buster Call can't touch the porcelain, reappearing in the world again, sailing to the seas of all nations to block the sun like the sun. After the calmness faded, the storm finally began to roar in the New World from this moment. In the grand occasion of the release of the World News, Sea Circle calendar, at the beginning of 1511, the 2 top royal armies of the New World officially went to war. In the New World, which is mainly a 4-emperor structure, it is often on the sidelines of their respective sea areas, and there will be dark rules similar to the bottom line. Under the main forces between the Emperor and the Emperor, there will be a huge piece of sea area as a buffer zone. That is to say, in this area, as the place where the Air General and Big Mom may start a war, there have been no ships coming and going. Even the residents of the nearby islands and towns traveled far away to seek refuge. Therefore, New World has only a single-handed report on the war under such a huge situation, and dares to broadcast news and even video in the deserted sea area. The Big Mom fleet crossed out of the Toto Land Sea area with mighty momentum, but it stopped its marching voyage when it arrived at the Maoyuan Sea area where the two sides buffered. It's not that he was just waiting for a rabbit, but that he saw the appearance of the enemy under Katakuri's brief foresight. Standing behind all the children, but relying on her huge body as if she was directly in front of the deck, Charlotte Linlin stared faintly at the distant sky. Wow! The originally calm sea area, as if foreshadowing some terrible situation to come, began to slowly set off layer upon layer of waves. Kotaku, who has been located not far from Big Mom, should raise his head. His eyes were full of deep gloom, and his pupils shone with a strange red light, staring straight at the sky covered by thick clouds in the distance. Mom, the Air Admiral's fleet is here. No one doubted Katakuri's words. On the deck of the main ship, everyone's eyes were on Katakuri's words. Who? It can be felt that the airflow in the atmosphere is suddenly blocked, overflowing and flowing. The thick cloud layer was forced to split open as if it was suddenly knocked open by some hard material. The surrounding space for several kilometers suddenly dimmed. Only part of the sunlight can shine down from the gap between the ship, and in it, the trace of a large ship can be seen faintly. And this is just the first one. Immediately afterwards, at the farther end of the horizon, a second huge black shadow appeared, followed by a third and a fourth, until several ships emerged from the broken clouds. The original sea-like blue sky was directly shrouded in the shadow of a huge number of fleets. As the distance got closer and closer, a large fleet composed of more than 10 ships, like giant armored steel behemoths, stood out into view. Even at a distance of several kilometers, there is an invisible sense of oppression coming from afar. Flying General's Grand Fleet. Finally, the Wano-kuni force is fully displayed in the world. Sound. On the deck of the Queen Mother Anthem, everyone's minds tensed instantly, and they held their weapons tightly. Looking into the distance, there was a surge of fighting spirit and strong fear in their eyes. Can Wano-kuni actually have that many troops? Looking at the large flying fleet that kept getting closer, Charlotte Linlin recalled the glory of the Golden Lion. The current mode gives her a sense of oppression that far exceeds that of the old lion. But compared to these, the situation that made Charlotte Linlin feel a little frightened was the force that Moda brought out at this moment. I learned from Kaido that in the year 1502 in the Sea Circle calendar, Wano-kuni could be considered a powerful samurai, and in a country with a population of 1 million, it was only destroyed to less than 40,000. And here, Charlotte Linlin estimates with knowledge and color, but there are about 100,000 troops. It is her current total combat power of 140,000 people, but there are a large number of Mihozi soldiers made of soul fruits. Doesn't this mean that in less than 9 years, Wano-kuni under Moda's rule is already comparable to or even far surpassing the Wan Guo she ruled for 20 years in terms of military strength? One by one, the big flying fleet, apart from the main ship and the flying battleships that mastered long-range attacks, several steel behemoths landed on the sea immediately and stably, set off 10 waves that are more than 10 waves high. Under the contact of troops, naval battles should still be the main focus. Above the sky, 1 black and 1 white M&D new national flags fluttered in the wind. Moda took the lead on the front and center main ship. All the members of the Imperial Court and the alternate fighters stood beside Moda, and there were countless elites below, each holding a weapon, looking forward with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. 4 emperors. One side of the sky, one side of the sea. One side looks down, the other side looks up. Looking at the terrifying lineup, the pirates under the command of Wan Guo, who were originally afraid of Moda, were even more shocked by the large flying fleet of this new era, and almost fell to the top of the deck. After seeing each other, Big Mom's huge body stood up directly from the main seat. Such a big battle, mother, it seems that you are going to have an endless battle with my old lady. Even with extreme fear in her heart, Charlotte Linlin still showed a rampant and arrogant attitude. Now is a new era of turbulent tides. A remnant of the old era like you who can only live in a slum and have children, should also be abandoned by the times. Moda smiled and looked down at Charlotte Linlin. Besides, persimmons are always soft. Charlotte Linlin smiled instead of anger. Don't think that if you take advantage of the information difference of my mother wants to make a profit, you will win. The top battle is more terrifying than this battle. When my mother is going through it, you don't know where to play with mud. Zhao. Zeus, Prometheus, Napoleon. Under the prestige, the 3 souls from Charlotte Linlin directly merged into the strongest form of the Ming lightsaber. Still not satisfied with this, Charlotte Linlin sacrificed several years of her life, and with the blessing of her majestic soul, she once again obtained various terrifying blessings in the form of a giant. In the battle of life and death, she didn't intend to hide any whole cards. It just consumes more lifespan. As long as Moda can be solved, pure gold can make up for her loss, not to mention the human body giantization experiment and Wanakuna's various resource backgrounds. After secretly allying with Kaido, Charlotte Linlin has no need to save her soul. Let's go, war. The oppressive feeling of the Pirate Queen descended on the audience. Charlotte Linlin stepped on the thundercloud, and looked ferociously at the large flying fleet in front of her. Moda. Amidst the sharp roar like a ghost, Charlotte Linlin finally couldn't hold back her shot. Stepping on the huge cloud, clenched the lightsaber tightly in both hands, the dark armament Haki wrapped everything up in an instant, locked onto Moda and the fleet behind him, and suddenly used a powerful and terrifying giant slash. Buzz, like a circle of fluctuations, a majestic purple giant sword chi shot out. With the blessing at the cost of burning life, Moda will naturally not deal with the sloppy mentality of the remaining power displayed by the Queen of the Sea at this moment. Chu Sakura unsheathed in response, and at the moment when the sword wave hit, with the terrifying sword force and Haki's blessing, a circular arc cut out, instantly intercepting the sword energy. Then his body suddenly disappeared, and in the next second, he flew in front of Charlotte Linlin, and the extremely domineering attack directly shook him down. In the aftermath of the terrifying attack, the formations of the fleets on both sides were somewhat scattered. Just when Moda and Charlotte Linlin directly entered the Imperial battle, the fleets of the two sides that were watching also began to move. The fleets under the command of Wan Guo began to speed up their sails. In the absence of land combat, what they were fighting was a boarding battle. This is the best way to deal with the Wano-kuni fleet and give full play to their numerical advantage. Boom, boom. Countless artillery fires were abandoned, and in an instant, like 1,000 arrows, they attacked the flying fleet densely. Immediately, Mihawk with Yi in his hand stepped forward, with the sword skills of the great swordsman. The moment the sword surged up, it was a slash. The huge slash that pierced the sky directly sliced through several artillery fires in the air to set off extremely destructive fireworks. Immediately afterwards, he jumped down directly from the sky, and with another sharp and fast slash, a 1,000-man ship was destroyed in a roar. Countless pirates fell to the surface of the sea, and Miho's soldiers turned into souls and dissipated. On the most secure flying battleship at the rear, Zoro, who was watching eagerly, was about to draw his sword and stepped forward. He wanted to jump off the flying main ship with Mihawk in a similar way, but he was caught by Nami just after taking a few steps. La stopped. Zoro, you big idiot, you said to come along this time, just to let us see the war. Ah. Zoro, who was only 10 years old, immediately showed dissatisfaction. It is obvious that Maria and Yamato can fight the enemy at this age, why should I watch? Boom. The girl who was clearly smaller than Zoro knocked Zoro to the ground with a punch. The war levels are different, okay, you stinking bastard. Now that Master Moda is not around, Nami has no reason to continue to maintain the form of a good girl all the way. Holding the words of Hedaoyi in his hand, Kuina looked down at the battle that he had already received, nodded and said, Nami is right, this large-scale war is not for you who have not fully mastered Haki and high-level sword skills to participate. Now the most important thing is to learn. Zoro gritted his teeth, and his biggest opponent who had been defeated for a long time said so he stopped thinking, and looked at the cause of the war that included the sky and the sea with fiery eyes, and his belief became stronger and stronger. Immediately afterwards, he seemed to notice another familiar figure, and he couldn't help roaring again, by the way, why is that guy Tolero already on the battlefield below? What? Nami and Rami immediately looked in the direction Zoro pointed. Room. A figure in a winter fur hat is lying across the battlefield below, using the freely operating space to directly cover the size of 3 fast lightships. Using the absolute cutting technique of the operation, without any swordsmanship slashing, Luo swung violently, and under the round slash, countless Miho's soldiers rushing forward as the vanguard turned into 2 halves and floated in the air. Is that guy using his abilities indiscriminately again? Really, I promised Sister Robin to keep an eye on you guys. The big brother is amazing. Nami with a headache is in stark contrast to Rami. Let him go, it's just that these Miko soldiers that even Haki won't use, are the easiest cannon fodder for the enemy to drive. Use flower fruit to contact and collect Robin from each ship, located at the planning platform of the main ship. Master Robin, the enemy has entered the shooting range. The call came from various airships. The lower part is responsible for meeting with the board, and the upper part is responsible for sniper traction. Hearing the information, Faye immediately ordered, accord to the plan. In an instant, dozens of cannon muzzles around the sky, facing the fleet of all nations in the sight. Everyone be careful, the enemy's long-range attack is coming. Keeping an eye on the air-conditioned muzzle, Perospero immediately raised his voice, but he didn't care much. One of the most simple and easy-to-block attacks in a pirate battle is the shell fired from the muzzle. No, this is not a cannonball, get out of the way. Predicting the future, Katakuri shouted loudly, and at the same time, the glutinous rice clusters in his hands spread out, quickly forming an intercepting net in the air, but he was still a step behind. The falling attack responded to everyone's doubts. Zzz. No shells were loaded, but the sound of blue energy compressing and converging continuously came from inside the muzzle. Call out. It wasn't a cannonball. The dazzling light, after condensing in the barrel, suddenly whizzed away. That is a new type of electromagnetic gun newly manufactured by the technology development team combined with memory alloy. The blasted electromagnetic beam was not inferior to the speed of the Kizaru laser, and even surpassed the beam's thunder explosion, bombarding the fleet of all nations in an instant. Dozens of bursts were fired in an instant, and only Katakuri, who could predict the future, hurriedly sheltered several ships. Boom, boom, boom. The huge energy under the explosion of the thunder beam directly blasted through the front of the 3 ships, followed by violent smoke, and countless soldiers and pirates screamed, or died directly. Or it was blown into the air by the impact of the impact, and fell into the sea with the sawdust shipwreck. What kind of weapon is this? A laser cannon in concept. Like that Kizaru guy. The pirates of all nations looked at the airship in astonishment. Continue. Seeing the effect, Robin nodded with satisfaction and continued to order. In order not only for this battle, but also for subsequent battles, the energy supply of the ships has already been fully prepared. Looking at the beams of light once again condensed in the muzzles. The Charlotte family, who already knew what the attack was, jumped up with solemn expressions, and various abilities were immediately deployed. Woo! 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 Even under the blessing of no hockey, the terrifying electromagnetic cannon just broke through the protection of countless biscuit soldiers overlapping them, and even used a large number of armed colors to block them in the air. A strong man who is good at armed color and physical skills, Charlotte's 7th son, Charlotte Cadans, even stepped forward with a right fist, and was directly blasted down in the explosion, with blood dripping from his arm. This is the result of the armed color being completely broken. Of course, the electromagnetic gun he came into contact with is not unusual. Located on the airship, BABY-5 is holding a lollipop in its mouth, equipped with a sight glass in front of its eyes, as, erecting its right hand that has turned into a cannon. Due to the changing sea area directly due to the war, the sea surface is full of white mist and thick smoke from the electromagnetic gunfire, making the sight gradually blurred. It's really earned. This terrifying battle, the War of the Sea Emperor, and the trump cards of the 2 forces are enough to make the whole world go crazy. On the hot air balloon floating in the far distance, Morgans took advantage of the high altitude and field of view of the newsbird, and matched it with a high-power projector to broadcast the war live. Hey, what are you kidding? Wanakuna's technology has developed enough to be able to use laser weapons in a big way. Far away in the Sabodi archipelago, on the huge projection screen surrounded by thousands of people, countless shocking voices resounded endlessly. As one of the marine monsters willing to comply with the 5 elders' plan, Kizaru, Paluzolino, listening to the broadcast of the phone bug, couldn't help feeling that he was crazy. But what's even crazier is that the world government wants Marine to help the air general. Paluzolino stands on the deck of the marching ship, and since Morgans has already been bribed, Marine will be concealed no matter the route or appearance. This piece of sea area that has been almost cleared can move forward quickly without hindrance. But suddenly, Paluzolino caught something. At the same moment, the surrounding sea was gradually blowing strong winds, and the health obsession blocked the direction to go. Is the weather in New World causing trouble again? Vice Admiral Dawson, the deputy beside him, couldn't help but said. I would rather be like this. After all, bad weather is better to accept than a strong enemy. You are right, Drago. Paluzolino raised his index finger, and the flashing light of the cross immediately aimed at the position of the muzzle on the warship beside him. Hearing this, Dawson looked away, couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat, and dodged with a razor. The artillery was right next to him, so he didn't realize that there were already enemies standing on it. The laser beam shot fiercely from Paluzolino's hand, but under the action of the invisible gust, the attack was directly deflected to the sea, hitting waves several meters high. It's really scary, as expected of the leader of the Revolutionary Army who has recently become famous in the world, but I have something urgent, can you please step aside? As soon as Paluzolino finished speaking, Drago waved his hands, and the surrounding storm stirred up, blowing up countless seawater, merging and condensing continuously, forming a waterspout, one of the most terrifying disasters in the sea. After the action answered Paluzolino, Drago said indifferently, let's talk, Paluzolino. After speaking, the momentum suddenly burst out. The terrifying Conqueror's haki instantly envelops the entire warship. Under the main bombardment of conquerors, the assistant vice admiral was directly stunned without any resistance. In less than a minute, the entire warship was conscious, and Paluzolino was the only one left. It's really getting more and more terrifying. It's worthy of being the third person among the monsters at that time. The self-satisfied expression as if everything was under control faded away, and Paluzolino looked at Drago, but he had no intention of launching an offensive. Back to the battlefield of focus. Fast, ready, hate. The electromagnetic gun with the 3 major offensive characteristics is directly like a sharp blade, directly tearing open one after another under the huge fleet of all nations launching a fierce offensive with the help of manpower. Immediately the medical soldiers rushed to bandage the wound. Kadans gritted his teeth and said, "There are special snipers above, and the lightning beam also carried Haki. We can only be prepared to abandon the ship, speed up the boarding battle, and approach them to limit the output of energy weapons. Cracker has more biscuit soldiers and reduces the damage of the opponent's energy weapons." Perispero immediately took command. As soon as the words fell, all the deployment of combat forces immediately took action. Cracker clapped his hands, and under the sound, one after another biscuit soldiers continued to gather in the air, blocking the bombardment position of the airship. Seeing this, Robin immediately ordered the general phone bug. As expected, the other party is about to rush home, ready to cater. This kind of charge is beneficial to Wanakuna's main elite and makes it easier to impact the number of enemies. Not only the vanguard army, after the main force of all nations reached the boarding battle, countless soldiers and pirates immediately raised their muskets and swords, and killed the oncoming Wanokuni forces. "We have a lot of people. Go. Follow the ministers and break through their lines directly." Gia Gia Gia. Laozi couldn't wait to be beaten blindly before. "Let me show you what a pirate is." The huge forces of over 10,000 of each other surged densely, and in an instant, an unprecedented melee began. Between the ship and the ship, it directly turns into the most important battlefield area. The sound of guns and cannons was endless, and under the densely handed-in crowd of the two sides, one by one figures fell under the gunpowder and swords. The cruelty of war, but no one stopped for it. Especially in Wanokuni, there is a firmer awareness than that of the 10,000 nations faction. For the victory of Lord General, the voices of encouraging shouts sounded one after another. Wanakuna's follow-up terrorist elite army rushed in one after another, and each of them was an excellent fighter trained by militarization. Except for the pirates who can control Haki and members of the Charlotte family, the rest of the soldiers have directly become the ones who have been mowed and turned into the purest cannon fodder. There are many people but not great strength, except that after the number of people gradually rushed up, the situation was one-sided like chopping vegetables. Even the members of the Charlotte family, who are the main force, also have their own trump cards and alternate forces to deal with. And this, for the nations relying on their numbers, is the fastest attrition to enter the disadvantage. Crackling. Dazzling blue lightning turns the sky blue. Immediately afterwards, like a condensed thunderbolt, it exploded suddenly, carrying the blessing of terrifying and majestic power. The blue and white figure quickly attacked the army of all nations. Boom. The violent electric current surged, and countless gray-black figures who slaughtered Lei Ting Neiwei flew out. Its Reki from the Imperial Garden continued to charge. Katakuri, who was normally cold and silent, yelled out in a rare way, and then jumped up suddenly, his terrifying strength instantly condensed, and he raised his hand to shake Yamato. The thunder on his body flashed again, with terrifying strength and Haki. Yamato quickly fought back. Thunder 8 trigrams. Moment. Amazing Conqueror's Haki. Like invisible fluctuations, suddenly spread out from the attack under Yamato's thundering 8 trigrams. Hit hard at the target. Seeing this, Katakuri's face changed, and the Conqueror's Haki also rushed forward quickly. Boom. Like a materialized sphere, one black and one red, under the hedge, they can't stop pushing. Conqueror's collision. While countless people were astonished, they were swept away by the strong wind. Clatter. The surface of the sea, which was originally turbulent, suddenly became majestic and violent, and the water splashed in all directions. Under the attack of the waves, it directly turned into a dangerous situation of turbulent waves. 960. Haki from both sides, each with fierce thunder, fiercely intertwined, forced the vast sea to get out of the way. The entire sky suddenly changed color. Woo-hoo-hoo. Crack. Crack. The incomparably violent hurricane raged lawlessly. It seems to have experienced a century of changes in the world, but it only took less than half a minute. The two extremely powerful auras finally decided the winner, and the Conquerors was entangled by the winner. Boom. The mace under the intertwined horror thunderbolt directly sent Katakuri, who was fighting in the air, flying away, and smashed it back to the main ship. Katakuri Big Brother. The tyranny under the collision, the impact of strength brought by the victory, directly blasted Katakuri, who was parrying with haki with all his strength, abruptly, and hit the deck of the ship behind Wan Guo, piercing through the eye-catching crater hole. Looking at Katakuri, who was completely lying down in the boat, countless members of the Junluoti family couldn't help but get up. It's not just a face-to-face meeting, but also the most perfect and powerful family in their minds except their mother, and the strength that never touches the ground is completely broken. How is this possible? Charlotte Owen couldn't accept it, and in extreme anger, flames burst out of her eyes. Owen, don't be impulsive, Perispero cried out violently. However, Owen, who was unable to stop the marching army, turned around abruptly, holding a naginata, and slashed at it with a terrifying flame. Yamato raised his eyebrows, and immediately crossed them suddenly. The electric current flickered, and he teleported directly to the top, blasting down in the direction of the opponent's sudden attack. Laugh. The terrifying thunder directly wiped out all the flames set off by the heat, and with the offensive of the tyrant, it directly destroyed all of Owen's armed forces. A violent storm was set off, hitting a cone-shaped area, and in the next moment, it suddenly burst open, turning into fragments all over the sky, scattered everywhere. At the brief moment when Owen was blasted into the air, Yamato quickly clenched his hands again, and hit his chest with a stick. The outward release far exceeded the strength, but the complete destruction from the outside to the inside, coupled with the destructive high-voltage current of the attack, directly caused Owen to spit out a big mouthful of blood, his eyes turned white, and his body completely collapsed from half-kneeling. Owen. Seeing this, Katakuri, who had slowed down, was about to rush to support, but his body suddenly turned into countless fluid nuo, avoiding sharp sword lights one after another. Quickly condensing the main body again, Katakuri looked at the coming person with a serious face, another trump card of the Oiwaban. It's really sharp, it's worthy of being able to develop the color of knowledge to the point where you can see the future for a short time. At some point, Gion, who had already come to the rear of the 10,000 nations fleet, smiled and waved Jinpira at the same time. However, I want to know whether the future you foresee can allow your body to keep up with the changes in acceleration. Swish. The moment the voice fell, her figure suddenly disappeared in place, leaving behind a series of afterimages, and slashed towards Katakuri at a speed that was hard to distinguish with the naked eye. The flat and waveless attack was only an instant, and the speed of the attack seemed to have directly crossed a distance of several meters, and it was already in front of him. But Katakuri, who had already dispersed his body to avoid the predicted attack position, felt a sudden stinging pain from his body during the change. The sharp sword has already caused imprinting damage, leaving scars that can destroy haki. So fast. No, not so much fast, but a sudden acceleration. Obviously, the traces of the attack, as he predicted, split the body in advance to avoid it, but while walking according to the future, the opponent just swung the sword, and the attack came before the split. This is the devil fruit ability. Don't let her take the initiative to attack. Having made a judgment in an instant, Katakuri quickly used his ability to turn his hands into strip-shaped rice cakes, and after merging with armament haki, in an instant, countless strip-shaped glutinous rice balls hardened with armament haki were quickly slapped towards Gion in all directions, and go. Countless violent rice cakes swimming like pythons attacked Gion vigorously, even including various predicted positions, completely blocking them, leaving no room for escape. When Marine 6 Styles was launched, coupled with the explosive acceleration up and down, her figure left an afterimage directly due to the excessive speed. Strips of glutinous balls, all of which were predicted in advance, but still under acceleration, penetrated the position of the afterimage one step slower. At the same time, countless strips of waxy balls in the air were cut off by the roots at some unknown time. The bar-shaped rice cake arm that displayed its ability felt even more bone-chilling. Immediately after he couldn't react in time, Gion had already flashed, and Jinpira directly landed on the arm protected by the armed color, drawing a large bloodstain. It seems that not only the color of knowledge, but also your armed color is much better than the intelligence. A figure with ease came from the constantly flickering phantom. Mochi. Katakuri gritted his teeth in pain, and suddenly activated his awakening ability. The area under his feet and the surrounding area turned into a piece of waxy ball, increasing the range of attack and protection. The predictable but unstoppable terrifying speed, coupled with Tien Jianao's sharp sword momentum. Such an enemy is even more difficult to deal with than Yamato. As the trump card of all nations, he was completely restricted, unable to support, and even had the risk of losing. and the Gion in front of him is just one of the famous aces of the royal garden. On Katakori's forehead, cold sweat and eagerness could not help but break out. Even though a very high judgment has been given, Wanakuna's elite terror still exceeds expectations. Now it is only based on the advantage of numbers, but the casualties in the situation are completely crushed. If Kaido's support is not tight enough, the army of all nations will be defeated even before the battle between Mom and Moda is over.